You have seen people on YouTube slapping EQs around like it's nothing. If that's you, stop. It's time to rebuild your foundation, and this is where it starts. We are in the module 2 of this course, so if you skip the first one, pause, go back and catch up. Well, this course isn't just for absolute beginners. It's for anyone with 1 to 4 years of producing experience trying to solidify their fundamentals as well. With that being said, let's get started. First, you need to understand frequency and frequency spectrum and how it works, because it's important, right? Sound is just waves moving through the air, and frequency, that's the speed of those waves, how many times they vibrate per second, and it's measured in hertz. So fast waves means high pitch and slow waves means low pitch. To make it simple, frequency basically controls pitch. Now, frequency spectrum. Think of it like a giant keyboard with bass notes on the left, mids on the middle, and high notes on the right. So every sound you hear, whether it's a kick drum, a guitar, or someone's voice, is made up of different frequencies. And these frequencies sit along a range that we call the frequency spectrum. I'm quite sure you have seen it before on an EQ plugin. So here's the deal. Every sound has layers. It's not just one frequency. There's the fundamental frequency, the main note you hear, and the overtones, or the extra frequencies stacked on top. So these overtones define timbre, why a guitar and a piano sound different even if they play the same note, right? So there are two kinds of overtones, harmonic and inharmonic overtones. So harmonic overtones are perfect multiples of the fundamental frequency. Say if your fundamental frequency is 100 Hz, the first harmonic would be 200 Hz, and the second harmonic would be 300 Hz, and so on. On the other hand, inharmonic overtones don't follow a perfect mathematical relationship with the fundamental frequency. They produce more complex, dissonant sounds like the ones you hear in drums, cymbals, or bells. Now, why should you care? Well, EQ shapes these overtones. When you EQ, you're not just changing the volume, you're sculpting the sound's texture and tone. Now, EQ or equalizer is your sound shaping tool. Think of it as your mixes referee, deciding which frequency gets to speak up and who needs to shut up. And EQs come with bands. These bands are like magnifying glasses for different areas of the spectrum. Some EQs have 2 and others have 8 and even more. And each band lets you boost, cut, or leave a frequency untouched. And each band has 3 main controls. Frequency, it decides which part of the spectrum you're targeting. Gain, how much you boost or cut, and bandwidth, which is commonly indicated by the letter Q, and it decides how wide or narrow the change is. And with multiple bands, you can shape several areas of the frequency spectrum at once, making sure instruments stay clear and balanced in the mix. So now that you know what EQ bands are and the functions of it, let's zoom in on specific frequency areas. We need to understand how each band shapes those frequencies. And this is where filter modes come into play. Filter modes are the main function of an EQ. Now what does that mean? Well, filter modes determine how the EQ shapes frequencies. Think of them as different tools in the same toolbox, each designed for specific frequency adjustments. Now let's look into the most common filter modes used in EQs. The first one is peak filter, also known as bell filter. This is the most versatile filter. It focuses on a specific frequency range with a bell-shaped curve, allowing you to boost or cut that range along with the immediate surroundings. You may use it to fix problematic frequencies or enhance key parts of your mix, like making vocals shine or taming harsh cymbals. The next is high-pass filter. A high-pass filter cuts everything below a selected frequency and allows only higher frequencies to pass, hence the name high-pass. It's essential for removing low-end rumble or bass from instruments that don't need it, like vocals or guitars. It also helps clean up the low end when layering multiple sounds that contains bass frequencies. Moving on to low-pass filter. The low-pass filter works opposite to the high-pass filter. It removes everything above a selected frequency, allowing only lower frequencies to pass. You may use it to reduce high-end harshness or cut noise from instruments like synth and drum overheads. Shelf filters give broad control over frequency ranges. It has 2 types, low shelf and high shelf. Low shelf boosts or cuts everything below the selected frequency, and it's great for adding warmth to bass sounds or reducing boominess. And high shelf boosts and cuts everything above the selected frequency, perfect for adding brightness to vocals or softening harsh cymbals. Then comes notch filter. The notch filter applies a narrow and precise cut at a specific frequency. It's ideal for removing resonances or feedback without touching other parts of the sound. Be careful with this one though. If overused, it can drastically alter the character of the sound. Moving on to band pass filter. This filter allows only a specific range of frequencies to pass, cutting everything above and below that range. It's often used in sound design to create special effects like simulating a telephone speaker effect. And that's it for the core filter types. The key is not just knowing what each filter does, but also when to use them. A clean mix is all about making smart decisions, not just slapping on filters, but applying them with intention. When working with EQ, you'll always hear people argue, should you cut or boost? Well, here's the rule of thumb. Cutting frequencies is usually the better approach. And you might ask, why is that? Well, cutting frequency helps you keep the natural dynamics and tonal quality intact. But when you start boosting, you risk introducing unwanted artifacts and distortion. Now, here's something you need to understand and keep in mind always. EQ in mixing is different from using EQ in sound design. Sure, EQ is useful in sound design, but the way you use it in mixing is completely different. Mixing demands subtlety, small, thoughtful moves. When we are cutting frequencies, the goal is to remove problem areas, not chase what sounds good. This helps you maintain clarity in your mix. And if you have to boost, though make it count, keep it small, 2 to 3 dB max. Even a tiny boost can make a difference without introducing distortion. And remember, boost only in the context of the full mix. What sounds great on a solo track might not work once everything is layered together. That brings us to an important point. How do you decide what to cut or boost? It all comes down to how well you can hear the details within each sound. Every instrument or sound is made up of multiple frequencies, not just one. And your job is to identify which of those frequencies are causing trouble or might cause trouble later. The key is to cut the problem frequencies without losing the character of the sound. And this is what makes EQ in mixing so delicate. Unlike EQ for sound design, where you can afford to be bold, mixing is all about precision, small intentional moves. And yes, this takes time to master, but don't worry. With deliberate practice, you'll get better, and we'll cover advanced techniques in future lessons. Now the question is how to make smart EQ decisions right now. Well, here are some of my ways to make smart EQ decisions, and these are also helpful for intermediates and advanced producers. First is to listen to your mix with a neutral mindset. Stop listening as the producer who knows every detail. Instead, try hearing it the way a casual listener would. Write down the changes you think are necessary. Note down the changes you'd like to make, and once implemented, repeat that again and again. Third is to make your adjustments and then do an A/B testing or A/B comparison. Check if the tweaks actually made a difference or not. If not, don't be afraid to reverse them. And it's also a great idea to listen to other songs for reference. This will help you understand what kind of sound you're aiming for. There are different kinds of EQs in the market, and we'll talk about them in our intermediate course, which will be coming out later. For now, you just stick to your stock EQ or whatever EQ you're using. The next module will be on dynamics and compression, so stay tuned for that, and I will see you there. Take care.